Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, January 4th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Cotton Bowl game against Texas is in 6 days. The game against Michigan in 329 days. Get a chance to start our Cotton Bowl coverage with the first press conference previewing the game. You're going to start on today's show with Ryan Day, Ohio State head coach. Tomorrow we'll let you hear from Steve Sarkisian, the Texas head coach. Got a chance to talk to him on Friday as well. We're going to start, though, with Ryan Day, as I said. Now, the first question at the press conference was from a Texas reporter, and sometimes you're trying to get the coach to try and say something interesting about the team you cover. This is one that was sort of set up for Ryan Day to say something interesting, and he did not take the bait. The question was, so Texas has really struggled in the run game recently, with as well as the Ohio State defense is playing. Is that an area where the Buckeyes could have an advantage?
I look at their offensive line, the coaches, their running backs, and I know that they're very, very talented. They're very good. So we're going to have to be at our best. I know that. And they're always looking for balance. Again, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Sark and the way that he designs his offenses, the way he calls the game. So our defensive staff is going to be working around the clock to put a great plan together. And then our players in terms of executing the plan. And that's what's most important as we head into this week and focusing on the process. We know when we get to this point in the playoffs, we're going to be playing against great players and great scheme. And we know that, this offense has a chance to be very, very explosive. So we got to get back to work this week and focus on the game plan, make sure that, we have a good mixture of the things that we've done in the past mixed in with things that, are possible change-ups along the way based on how they attack us.
Now, it seems like quite a while ago that everyone in Columbus was about ready to jump off the roof following the loss to Michigan and missing out on the Big Ten championship game. And there was lots of uncertainty about how the Buckeyes were going to play when they did get a chance to go into the college football playoff. And 2 games later, well, that's not really as much of a concern anymore. 2 blowout wins over Tennessee and Oregon. And now the Buckeyes are halfway through the 4-game run to a national championship. So if they enter the playoff with a lot of people doubting them and have really used that as a motivational tool to kind of keep an edge over the first couple games, now that they're sort of back in everyone's good graces after a couple big wins, how do they keep that edge?
Yeah, I mentioned it to the team the other day. Same guys in a room as was there a month ago. And nothing that's happened in the past or really the noise that's around the building has anything to do with our preparation and our focus and our process. And that's what we've been diving into. And, we don't need any extra motivation to win this game. But one thing that does motivate our team is an opportunity for the team to play for another week together. And, this is a great group of guys that cares a lot about each other, have fun with each other. They love competing with each other. You can see the passion on the field when they get on the field. And, I think the way that this format is and the way the playoffs are set now, it allows us an opportunity to grow as a team and to learn and to get better and to peak late in the season. And so I think we've learned a lot about our team. I think we've grown a lot as a team. And, we're banking on this to be our best football of the season. But these guys, they care a lot about each other. And we're just going to focus on the execution and making sure that, we're preparing ourselves as best as we possibly can to go play this game against these guys on Friday night. And that's it. Nothing else matters. I've said this before, nothing that's happened previously is going to have any effect on what's going on other than learning from our experiences. So we got to do a good job of starting from scratch again. And I think that's one of the things that our guys need to understand is that when you're playing in playoffs, it's almost like, seasons within themselves during that week. And that, you almost start from scratch, and you can go through and you say, okay, here's your opponent, here's your process, here are the walkthroughs, here are the meetings, here are the practices, here are all the things that come with preparing for a game like this to be at competitive excellence. And so we got to do a great job this late in the season of being disciplined to do a better job than Texas.
Ohio State fans, I think, have taken a shine to Will Howard, only playing in Columbus for this one season as a quarterback, but he has been just dynamite on the field in virtually every game for the Buckeyes. Dropped some absolute dimes in that Rose Bowl, as well as against Tennessee in the game before that. But, set aside Will Howard as a player, what has he meant to the team as a leader?
Well, I think even for somebody who's, experienced like he is and with his age, you still, you're at a different school, you're in a different program, you're in a different offense. And playing within the offense and being here now for the number of games that he's played, he's learned a lot about himself, but he's also learned a lot of the offense. He's grown into the offense. And I think he understands that his job is to be the number one leader on the team and on the field, and that the team is going to take on his personality. But in terms of the football on the field, I think he's done a great job off the field of grasping the concepts. He's put a lot of work in with Chip and with Billy. When he, the first couple words come out of a play, he can finish it for you. And that's when he knows exactly what's going on. He makes sure everybody's on the same page. When you're in the huddle, you can communicate a lot of information, situation, down, distance, score, all those things that come into play. And so, I think that's been important. I also think his footwork has improved. I think when his footwork is on time, and he's able to, time some things up in terms of his play actions and drop back passes, you're seeing him play, really good football, making good decisions and throwing the ball accurately.
One of the recurring storylines of the regular season for Ohio State is, boy, the Buckeyes keep getting off to slow starts. They just can't come out of the gate fast at all. They're trailing Northwestern, they're trailing Indiana. They can't get out to a good start. What's going on with the Buckeyes? Well, in the playoff, they have just been shot out of a cannon. 2 games in, a combined 35-0 in the first quarter against Tennessee and Oregon. And honestly, it could have been worse in both cases. So what has changed there for the Buckeyes?
We've always wanted to have fast starts. I mean, we all know that. But I do think that, we've talked about, early in games, you want to set the tone for the game, as an individual, but also as a team, as a unit. Both games we've started off with the ball, and we've gone right down and scored. And so execution fuels emotion, and that certainly has a big part of it. They go together, and we've executed well on those first couple drives, and that's had a big part of it. Defensive got some 3 and outs early in the game, and we've been able to jump on the last 2 opponents. But we also know that when we get into halftime, we got to go play in the second half. And we didn't do a great job of handling the middle 8 in this past game, and so we got to get that fixed. The issues are always there. You come out of a game like this, it's easy to say, well, everything was great. It wasn't great. There was a lot of things that we got to get better at if we're going to beat Texas. And so we got to make those adjustments coming out of the game. We got back here yesterday, got back on the film. It was a quick turnaround, but the guys did a great job getting in here, getting on the film. We kept our routine. And so, that's going to be the focus. But yeah, we always want to get fast starts, but we know it's going to be 4 quarters, and we got to come out of halftime. And I think that's the thing that, we talk about all the time. When you come into halftime, it's going to be one of 3 things. You're leading, it's tied, or you're losing. And then how do you, figure out how you're going to go adapt in the second half to go win the game?
Speaking of things that feel like a million years ago, 1 season back, the Buckeyes were also playing in the Cotton Bowl. Obviously, very different circumstances from the ones they're going to be facing now going into this year's game. Very different stakes as well. But what's the message to the Ohio State team heading back to Arlington?
Yeah, well, we're 2 games away from a national title, and the only way that we're going to get to that final game is to win this game, and that's it. And I think yesterday we were able to talk a little bit about that, but once that's done, the Oregon game is over, and you got to move on from that, just like we've had to move on from other games in the past. And the only thing that matters is this game right here, playing against Texas. And again, our motivation right now is keeping this team together 1 more week. And then we'll go from there and figure out what's next after that. But everything else right now is a distraction. And like you said, the leaders are the ones that have to set the pace on this. And when you're a young 18, 19, 20-year-old person, it isn't always easy to stay locked in for this long of a time. And I think the team that can be disciplined enough to do that and continually prepare at a high level and not cut corners, not fray, not get distracted, not try to take shortcuts this time of year is going to give themselves the best chance to win. And so we've got to do the best job we possibly can at preparing for this game. And that's our focus, and that's our process right now that we're going to continue to dive into.
College football coaches always love to control whatever they can control. And in this case, having played in the Cotton Bowl last year and having played in Jerry World before helps a lot. Even got to remember, Will Howard even played in Jerry World in the Big 12 championship game. So everyone's kind of familiar for the most part with the stadium, with the facilities, all that kind of stuff. Does that help?
Yeah. And, even for me with the TCU game, so there's a lot of, history there. And I don't think that really has anything to do with anything, quite honestly. We got to go play on the field, but it's a great venue. We've had a lot of great games there, and I know we have great fans, in the Dallas area and throughout Texas. And so we know it's going to be a great atmosphere.
One of the big storylines coming out of the quarterfinals was, conference champions, those teams that got the first round bye, that didn't seem to help at all. All 4 of them lost in the quarterfinals. So was it an advantage to have come in with a little bit of momentum and already have a college football playoff game under your belt when we're entering those quarterfinals?
I know we're all looking to see how this all shakes out and then going to evaluate it and figure out what's the best moving forward. I don't really know the answer to your question other than the fact that I did feel like, we've talked here in this room about, going back and watching some of the old NFL teams and winning that first wild card game and then getting some momentum into the playoffs and continuing to play. There's been evidence of that throughout, the NFL playoffs because there really has never been a college football playoffs like this before. So you go back on, things that you can best compare to. And so I did feel like if we could get a good win in the first game, we could build momentum. Now, it's our job to keep momentum. We have it right now, but that doesn't mean anything if we don't keep it. So, we'll continue with our process. These games are coming fast. They're not bowl games. They're just like game weeks. And it'll be the same thing there. We get in on Wednesday night, and then we play the game on Friday. So it'll be a quick turnaround, and we'll, again, focus on our process.
Next up is a question from a reporter who gave his name as Jeremiah Smith. So you can keep that in mind when you hear Day's answer because there's a little bit of a back and forth at the start. But the question was, Will Howard looked so comfortable in the Rose Bowl. What has that acclimation process looked like? Getting him acclimated to the Ohio State offense, to feeling comfortable with things, and how do you keep that rolling now?
We just keep it throwing it to you.
I know. It's great. I've reminded my family many times how amazing the name is week in and week out.
Well, I think, again, for Will, the more he plays at Ohio State in this offense with his teammates, he's getting more and more comfortable with everything. And you can say, well, he's played a lot of college football before, and he has. And you're seeing some of those things show up on the field. But just like anything else, you see guys who move from NFL team to NFL team, and sometimes it takes a while to get into the offense and understand it. It's like a language. And when you can understand it, like second nature, that's when you can play your best football. So, again, what does that mean moving forward? Nothing. He's got to go do it from the first snap all the way to the end. And, if you start, thinking back on good games, bad games, and start to think that that's going to affect this next one, you're dead wrong. So he's got to be the best leader on the field. But he also has some confidence right now going into this game, which, again, he's got to continue to build on.
Will Howard will enter the game as Ohio State starting quarterback. Quinn Ewers will enter this game as Texas's starting quarterback. But, of course, there's some alternate history somewhere where this is Quinn Ewers, Ohio State starting quarterback in 2024. You got to remember he enrolled at Ohio State as a true freshman early enrollee in 2021 before transferring to Texas following that one season. What were Ryan Day's first impressions of Quinn Ewers as a recruit, and what was it like to have him at Ohio State for that one season?
Well, he was one of the first 8th graders that I ever offered. He was in our camp here in the Woody, and I saw a young he was a boy at the time, really, who just had a tremendous release. And I remember grabbing him and grabbing his dad and said, man, you got a bright future ahead of you. I don't know if this is good or bad, but we're going to offer you a scholarship to Ohio State even in 8th grade. And again, I don't know if that's legal or not, but we did. And then we went through the process, and it was strange how it all shook out. He decided to come really in the middle of preseason camp for us. And so it was a little bit strange, but again, with college football, you look to adapt the best you can. And then CJ really had a great season that season, and he decided he really wanted to play. And it was disappointing for us, but we certainly understood. And from afar, I've watched him, and he's got a lot of talent. He's a really good player. He comes from a great family, and he's had a great career at Texas. And a lot of people here still have good relationships with him and think the world of him.
And finally, a quick look back at the Rose Bowl. Got to talk about that second Jeremiah Smith touchdown. This is the one where they're going left to right on your TV screen or on the field if you were sitting on the Oregon side of things. And it was the long touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith. But it takes a little bit of time to get that receiver down there and let him beat the safety and get open so you have that easy walk-in touchdown as they did. And a big part of that was Donovan Jackson. He had a huge block on Jordan Burch to help make that happen. What has Donovan Jackson meant to this year's team?
Yeah, I would say in terms of his leadership, he's been extraordinary. We all know the story. This is a guy who came back, by the way, from Texas. So I'm going back to his home state to play in this game, which is great, exciting for him. But he came back to play guard and be the top guy taken in the draft next year after a very long decision with he and his family. So then, after that Oregon game, to have to go move to tackle, it was a very selfless thing to do. But in the meantime, when he's embraced it, and this is a great message for our young players, he embraced the change for the team. He's now become a very, very good tackle, and he's increased his value exponentially, in my opinion, with the ability to play both positions. We'll need him to play that way in this game. They have tremendous pass rushers. They do a great job rushing the passer on the edge. They have some really good players. But he battled his tail off, and all those throws that Will has an opportunity to push down the field, it's because of the protection of the offensive line. So that goes into a lot of work. And sometimes I don't know if the offensive line gets credit for the protection, because in the pass game, it doesn't work if we don't have protection. It doesn't work if we don't run the routes properly. It doesn't work if the running back doesn't pick up his blitz. And then obviously the throw and catch. So a lot goes into the passing game, and the protection's a big part of that.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. As I said, we'll have a press conference show with Steve Sarkisian, Texas head coach, coming up on the next show, tomorrow's show. Also have the Ohio State Oregon Rose Bowl rewatch show. Tony Gerderman and I dropped that on Friday evening in the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed. I think you will probably enjoy listening to us relive that game as we watched it after we got home. And then we'll start our usual process, watching some Texas games as well. We'll try and get at least 3 games in for you, watching the Longhorns and some of their most recent games, give you a sense for what you can expect from the Longhorns and the Buckeyes, of course, when they face off in the Cotton Bowl. And it's coming up in just under a week. Can't believe it is a quick turnaround, but going to be a fantastic week of content. We'll be headed down to Arlington on Tuesday. Going to have a lot of content for you down there, but of course, a lot of content for you even before we get there at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there to make you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.